2 months ago, Apple released their new AI tools for everybody in the US called Apple Intelligence. And I'm sure you've heard of this by now. The news has been literally everywhere. And what they actually came up with in the end was kind of disappointing. I was super stoked at the beginning since new AI tools equals humanity is getting more advanced. But I don't even use a MacBook, or at least I wasn't at the time. And so I started searching for something similar to it, but for Windows. And I came across this tool right here. Now, if you ask me personally, in all honesty, this looks downright abhorrent, maybe even criminal. Still, shout out to the guy who built this. I think he's a high schooler. And just then, I had remembered that Evil Corp launched something similar to it, called Microsoft Copilot, which uses the OpenAI models like GPT-4. And like a little kid on Christmas, I was again excited to try it out, until I read this article. This piece of garbage software actually takes a screenshot of your entire computer every 2 seconds. And it's not even encrypted or anything, it's literally just stored on your disk. I mean, I wish this was a joke, because Microsoft is this huge company that's supposed to care about privacy, which we all know is not true, by the way. But still, it's kind of weird. Like, I wouldn't want even a person to take a look at my screen every 2 seconds to see what I'm doing, let alone an AI who's probably being trained on my data. I was at a loss. What shall I do? I was about to give up on my AI motivation. Just then, I remembered this.
Okay.
Never back down, never what?
Never give up.
Yeah, I want it louder though. Never back down, never what?
Never give up.
Never back down, never what?
Never give up!
That's right! Let's go!
Now, generally for this task, I had always used GPT for free, but since recently, there have been a lot of errors, especially networking errors or just generally request errors that have been happening with the library. And this makes it generally unreliable, and so I wasn't going to use it again. And that is actually partly because it relies on freely available websites, so that's why I had to find a new way. This is Ollama, and it allows you to download open source models and do inference on them. For example, like Llama 3.2 from Meta or Mixtral. And although it's amazing that you can run these huge models locally, remember, I'm not a gazillion-dollar corporation that's trying to sell your data to thirsty third-party providers. So I don't necessarily have the raw power to run these models, if you know what I mean. I mean, sure, I could get like 20 Mac Minis and daisy chain them, but that's just very expensive to do. However, that's just what I thought in the beginning. After actually trying it, I found that you can run normal models with like 7 billion parameters locally without any problem, as long as you have a capable enough computer to handle that. Now, of course, you can't run like DeepSeek R1 with its full 671 billion parameters, but you can run the lower end models. And another reason that I chose Ollama is that it uses OpenAI's format for its requests. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't like paying for API requests to OpenAI, but their format is really simple and easy to understand. I mean, just look at this. And it even comes with various SDKs for programming languages, including the one we're going to be using for this project, which is called Python. Next up, I had to decide on the features for the app itself, which was actually pretty easy to do, since I could just copy the ones from Apple Intelligence, and also some from Microsoft Copilot, but don't worry, I'm not going to do the dystopian surveillance technology one, since I'm not Evil Corp, and I'm actually human. Funny, that's exactly what a robot would say. And so after taking all of these things into consideration, I compiled a list of features, which include proofreading, summarization, continuation of a given text, simplification, and last but not least, text formatting into Markdown. And the reason I chose Markdown for this is because you can literally use it for anything. I mostly use it for tech documentation or even maths. Also, it's very easy to understand. And another feature that I wanted to have is to give you the ability to do custom operations on the text that you selected. So for example, if I wanted to translate a text from German into English, I actually can't do that with the predefined options. So I'll have like an input bar where you can enter your instruction and it would automatically change the text into English, without there being a button for this specific action. Great, now that we know its capabilities, let's decide on some more miscellaneous stuff. For example, the name. Can you guess what I named it? Windows Intelligence.
We do not care.
We're also now done with the entire system design, so let's get to the code side of things. I know that you have the attention span of a goldfish, but just bear with me for a second. First, let's create the basic layout using a UI library called PyQt6. First, we need to set the title of our window, the size of it, and the main styling. Now, I generally want a light background with dark text, with somewhat readable text size on my 57-inch Neo G9. Now, we need to define the layout itself as a vertical box and set the spacing for everything in between to 15 pixels. Now, you'll notice that this looks somewhat similar to average CSS, but it actually isn't. It's PyQt's own implementation of their CSS alternative alternative which is meant for their own ecosystem. For example, it doesn't have things such as transitions or box shadows, which would be absolutely essential in web development. Now let's add an input bar and a button. These are meant for custom operations that you yourself want to do to the selected text. This again is the kind of example that I mentioned earlier with the translation. Next up, we need a section where we have a set amount of predefined actions which we can act upon. Now I mentioned these earlier, which are the features. These can be very simple Qt buttons, and the styling for them is the same as the Ask button earlier. And last but not least, we need a results section where obviously the result is written to. Now that we have the main window finished, let's design the window that will be shown when the app is launched for the first time. Now we'll need different configuration options, so you can actually call this a configuration or setup window. Let's welcome the user and give him two configuration options: the AI model that is going to be used and the preferred language. Now we can get a list of available models by calling the list method from the Ollama SDK, which returns a list of models that are locally already installed. For the languages, I used a package called PyCountry and then access the languages object, which is super easy. It's not like this took me 15 minutes to figure out. And lastly, we need a get started button which closes everything after it wrote the config to a file. And this file will be called windowsintelligence.config.json, and it's stored in the user's home directory. Now that we have both windows ready, how are we going to open them? And this in itself took me actually quite some time to implement, but essentially the idea is that on your first launch you'll need to press Ctrl space. And once you've configured everything, you need to relaunch the app. Then select a piece of text which is either misspelled or that you want to do changes to, and press Ctrl space again. And then obviously choose an operation from the main window or give your custom instruction. Once it's done generating, you'll see some sort of result text and a copy button. You're able to click this copy button and it will give you a little notification saying that you successfully copied the result. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire workflow of this app. I've been using it the past 2 weeks now, and let's be honest, it looks even worse than the tool I showed at the beginning, but still, you know, it's my own baby, I built it. And if you want to learn to build stuff like this, I'm actually launching a Python course very soon. Sign up for the waitlist by going to fuji.codes and entering your email. Also, just join my Discord server if you want to talk to people that are interested in the same stuff as you, such as coding, for example. That's all. See you next time.